recognizes the gift of life itself, that knows that there is always something that can be received as a blessing. We open this day to explore some of the mystics and the masters and the peacemakers among us in a way that hopefully can inspire, perhaps offer insight into our life. So for this time of seeking and finding together, of blessing and of being the blessing, we are truly grateful. Thank you, God, and so it is. Amen. I invite you to stand as you're able and join in our opening congregational song that says, I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm just where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. 'Cause I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm just where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Yes, I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Yeah, your soul is welcome here. So we invite you to extend a warm welcome. This means I want a holy handshake. This means I want a holy hug. So turn and welcome those around you this morning. Welcome. sound beautiful. And this band, you be jamming this morning. So to our band, would you show them our love and appreciation? Thank you so much. You sounded absolutely beautiful this morning. Plant our feet on higher ground, higher consciousness. We'd like to take this opportunity to extend a welcome to anyone who may be here for the first time. We also pause and invite you to turn and wave at the cameras and welcome those who are joining us on live stream. We have folks now that are tuning in from, I can't remember if it's 9 or 12 different countries, but word's getting out fast. So hello to all of our live streamers, and thank you for letting us know that this is touching your life as well. We want to extend a special welcome to any of you that are here for the first time. If this is your first time, if you would raise your hand, it will allow us to give you a connections card. So if you just hold your hand up for just a moment, Mike is going to make his way to you. They're going to give you a connections card that will allow us to connect if you'd like to do so. But there's a red part, a sticker. If you want to wear that sticker, it will allow us to acknowledge your presence as someone that's a newcomer, and we can certainly extend that warm welcome to you. We also have packets of information outside by our bookstore if you'd like to anyone pick up one of those. We hope you feel the love that is here for you this day. We appreciate your being here. We appreciate your presence. And we'd like to offer this gift back to each of you that says, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. I'm going to ask Reverend Christy to share some announcements and things that are coming up. And while she's coming up, if you would turn your cell phones off, send those into the silence, we would greatly appreciate that. And I invite you to join me in thanking Reverend Christy, who's really at the heart and the center of all that's going on here. Thank you, Reverend Christy.
Thank you, everyone. It is my honor. Before I go into the slides that are ready for us, I just want to remind folks that if you are an active member here in our community, in accordance to our bylaws, we are requested to renew our membership every year. So you saw that table coming in the lobby. If you are an active member and would like to renew your membership, please complete one of these forms and submit it, and then you are good to go for another year. This does not apply to those who just joined in February, but from last year on, stay with us. And so I just wanted to share with you that we have expanded our nursery care. So during the first service on Sundays, we had so many babies born, like 6 babies born last year. Oh, both services. Oh, we do have nursery care for both services. See? Coffee, please. So both services, the nursery remains the same, and that's for infants, and then the space right next door to it is now for toddlers. So if you have a growing family and would like to check out our youth program, please do so. Our prayer chaplain room, prayer chapel has moved to the back in the former YOU room. And also this week we have a new class starting with Reverend Darlene, the Art and Practice of Sacred Abundance. Phenomenal class. It has changed so many people's lives. Last year we started this class. Please join us. There are sign-up sheets out in the lobby, and there is information in your bulletin. You should have a full page insert regarding that. Next Sunday we have with us again Charlie Tweet, and he will be here, phenomenal guy and musician. He'll be here with us during both services, and then he's offering a concert in the afternoon from 1:30 to 3. And that is a $20 suggested love offering. And if you've not experienced him, please come join us. Bring a lunch, plan to stay, and it's a delightful time, his concerts. And also, we're still collecting non-perishable foods for our food drive for Interfaith Assistance Ministries for Henderson County. And if you have any questions about anything else, please see me following today's service. I would like to introduce Reverend Laura Collins for our inspirational reading.
Thank you, Rev Christy. This morning's reading comes from Mark Nepo, Below Our Strangeness. My soul tells me we are all broken from the same nameless heart, and everything wakes with a piece of the original heart aching its way into blossom. This is why we know each other below our strangeness. Why when we fall, we lift each other up, or when in pain, we hold each other. Why sudden with joy, we dance together. Life is the many pieces of that great heart, loving itself back together.
We are all just mirrors. In your faces I see clearer, clearer than I've ever seen before. The heart is where you live from. To give is what you give from. This is what I truly know before. And my own unkind behavior. Who am I to judge anyone at all? 'Cause if I look into you, I can see the pain you've been through. And I know, 'cause I felt that way that you do. Oh, with love. Of my peace, I am an instrument of my love. I said love, 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 love. I am an instrument of my peace. I am an instrument of my love. I said love, 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 and love. More love.
beautiful song and what a beautiful sight, Kat, to have you back in the house. Love is what we are here for. Today I'm excited to begin a series that will take us through Easter and actually the week after Easter that I have titled Mystics, Masters, and Peacemakers, where we're going to look at different individuals that we may consider a mystic or a spiritual master teacher or peacemaker. Many of these you will know, and I hope I also introduce you to some new people along the way. And you know, the great thing about looking at the lives of others who are known as mystics and spiritual masters and peacemakers is it gives us an opportunity to find insight and inspiration, hopefully pick up some ideas along the way. It's also very encouraging to me that it doesn't matter typically the path, their religious affiliation or not, the era and time in which they have been, the part of the country, but as we begin to look at these, by the time we reach the end, you're going to see some commonality. You're going to see that they were able to see through all the dogma, see through all the letter of the law to get to the spirit of it. And that same spirit seems to shine forth in the same way, yet reflected through these individuals. And so today I'm excited to begin with this first individual, and I want to see if you know who it is based on some of the quotes. Some of the popular quotes from this individual: "My life is my message." This first individual said, "God has no religion. Truth is one. Paths are many. My religion is simple. My religion is kindness." They also said, "I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet." I love that one. They said, "The day the power of love overrules the love of power, the world will know peace." And perhaps the most popular one is, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Anybody want to guess? That's exactly right. The first one that we are looking at is Gandhi, born in October 1869, lived through 1948. And probably the most popular saying, although I'll share a number with you, he really had just magnificent, brilliant jewels of truth, of wisdom. But you know that bumper sticker wisdom you've got behind those cards that say, "Be the change you wish to see," but then the sign language they're giving doesn't really look like they're in, it may be just bumper sticker wisdom, that it never got any further. And so we want to use these sayings and these ideas, but hopefully take it to a much deeper level of practical application. When we look at Gandhi today, I'm going to introduce you to 3 questions. If you really look at his life, you can see that it seemed to be he was responding to what I would call 3 questions you can very clearly see. And I then want to introduce you to 4 spiritual practices that we can clearly draw from his life. But to begin, I want to share with you just a little bit about Gandhi. You know, when you think of the name, anytime that you're globally identified by one name, Gandhi, Jesus, Buddha, you know you made an impact. Oprah, Elvis, you know you made an impact when you're internationally known by one name. Well, Gandhi is probably known best, what most people would say, nonviolence. And yet there's so much more to that. He was really a conscience for humanity, some people have said. He really embodied the teaching of what he called soul power. He has been referred to as Bapu in his language, B-A-P-U. Bapu means father. Bapu, father of the Indian nation. He literally did establish and found a declaration of independence for what we would call today India and Pakistan. He freed that from the British Empire. He was born in 1869 in a Hindu family, which was the custom where he lived in Western India. He was born at a time when Europe ruled the world. Europe at the time, Great Britain was the superpower. And the land of India was considered the jewel in the crown. It was the crown jewel. It was the prized land. And so the British Empire had pretty strong rule over that territory at the time that he was born. He was born in the Hindu tradition. There's a caste system that your lot in life is totally shaped on the kind of family you're born into. He was born into the business class, which, though it was not wealthy, it certainly was much better off than a lot of people. He did basically have what he needed, and he had the opportunity to go to school. He was also the youngest child in his family, and as an adult, he is often referred to as the little man, the little brown man, they would call him, and I'll share a little bit more about that with you. But as a child, he was exceptionally little as well, and so he was known as being shy and very timid. Someone who grew up with him said Gandhi was an average student, very shy, very timid. As a child, there were absolutely no signs of brilliance. I mean, that's something you hope at least there's some sign of brilliance. No, they said absolutely no sign of brilliance. He of himself said that he was average pretty much in every way. He was married, as was custom, by arranged marriage at the age of 13. He was married at 13 to a girl who was 13. He said, I first learned the concepts of nonviolence in my marriage. He had interest in becoming a doctor. His passion was to help people heal. And though he didn't become a doctor, I think he helped people heal, because I believe the greatest healing power on earth is the power of belonging. And he was an advocate for the power of belonging. His father worked in government affairs, and he wanted his son, his youngest son, to be a lawyer. And so when Gandhi was just 18, his father died, and Gandhi decided that to honor his father, he would become a lawyer. So they sent him to go to London. He actually went to London, where he studied law. He wrote and said that he really struggled. He struggled with his shyness. He struggled adjusting to Western culture. And it wasn't necessarily an enjoyable experience with him. When he was becoming a lawyer, in one of his first cases, it was actually his very first case, he was in court, and when it came time to cross-examine the witness, he totally blanked out, and so he just turned around and ran out of the courtroom. And he did eventually still become a lawyer, but he didn't practice in India. He was offered a job. He had difficulty really finding meaningful work in India, and he was offered a job in South Africa. He was offered a year contract, and that was the reason that he left. I think he was 22 years old at the time, thereabout, when he left and went to India, to South Africa to practice law. He wrote that, he said, while in South Africa, he experienced prejudice firsthand. His first day in court in South Africa, the judge told him to take the turban off of his head. He again turned and ran out of the courtroom. Hope you're seeing a pattern here. Just about a week later, he was asked to go to the capital city in South Africa, where he would help on a trial. And so he bought a first-class ticket. He got on a train and started heading to South Africa. Well, in South Africa, apartheid, white people were in first class. Gandhi had very brown skin. And so someone objected to a brown-skinned person being in first class, which was white class at the time, and complained to the conductor, and the conductor said, you cannot be in first class. You have to go to the third car all the way in the back. And Gandhi said, but I bought a ticket. You sold me a ticket. I have a ticket. And he said, I don't care. You have to go to the back. And he refused. And so at the next stop, they literally picked him up by his coat and threw him off the train. And he said that when he hit the ground and the train took off, it was a cold night in South Africa, and another train would not be coming until the morning. So he had to spend the night there in the cold. He said it was a huge aha moment. And the choices he would make, what he would do, would literally change the course of history. And we'll come back to that. He did, in fact, literally change the course of history. One of the many people that were truly inspired and intrigued by him was Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein wrote of Gandhi in learning his story. He said, from that night forward, the small, unassuming man would grow into a giant soul force for good. drawing national attention to acts of prejudice and injustice. He said, generations to come will scarce believe that such a one as this ever in flesh and blood walked upon the earth. He said Gandhi almost single-handedly freed India and its 500 million people from their long subjection to British Empire. But he did so without raising an army, without firing a gun or taking a hostage, and without ever holding a political office. This really intrigued Einstein. In January of 1948, just 6 months after India was freed, 6 months after, when Gandhi was 79 years old, back in his home country, he was going to New Delhi, walking for evening prayers, and a Hindu nationalist was very upset with Gandhi because an interviewer had gone to Gandhi's ashram and interviewing him, and he saw a picture of Jesus. The only picture he saw was one of Jesus, and he asked Gandhi, he said, "You are Hindu, why do you have a picture of Jesus?" He said, "I like your Christ, not so much many of your Christians, but I like your Christ." And he responded, and the reporter put out what he said, and what he said is, "Because I am Christian, I am Jew, I am Muslim, I am Hindu." And then he looked at the reporter and said, "And you are too." He said, "I believe there is one God cloth, and all humanity is cut from the one God cloth." And again, a religious zealot in the Hindu tradition was upset by that and shot him down when he was 79 years old, going to his evening prayers. But his life truly was a legacy. He literally did change the course of history. And so if we look at this, his funeral, over 2 million people attended his funeral, over 2 million people. They really do call him Baba, B-A-P-A, Baba Gandhi, Father Gandhi, the father of all people, not just the nation, because he made himself, he really believed in kindness. And he said, if you take the D off the kind, what do you have? Kin, that we're all kin. We are all one God cloth. I love that image, that we're all cut from the same fabric. It's a beautiful image. So the 3 questions and the 4 practices. The first question I believe that we can draw from his life is the question, what will we make of ourselves? What will I make of myself? Will you say that with me? What will I make of myself? What will I make of myself? You see, as a boy, Gandhi was very small. He was picked on, and so he ran home every day from school. As a young law student, when he flubbed up and messed up, what did he do? He turned and ran out of the courtroom. When he goes to South Africa and he's confronted with, you can't wear that turban in here, what does he do? He turns and he runs out of the courtroom again. So on that night, when he's thrown off the train and he hits the ground, what do you think his first impulse was? Run. His first impulse, he said he was so angry. I mean, can you imagine, whatever the color of your skin is, can you imagine if the color of your skin was considered less than? Can you imagine if just by the very color of your skin, something you certainly can't change, if you were considered a second-class citizen to the point you were thrown off of a train? He was so angered, he was filled with anger. And how he had always responded in the past was what? Was to run. And so he said it was actually a blessing that he had to be there in the cold alone all night long, because he couldn't just go somewhere like we could today and get ourselves back to India and say, forget that, forget them. They don't appreciate me. I'll go back with my people. But in that period of time, what he began to do is he began to practice self-observation. Because you see, the first question, what will I make of myself? The practice that we use and the practice he taught is the practice of self-observation. In that moment when he was thrown from the train, it was a wake-up call. It was an aha moment. Can you relate? Have you ever had an aha moment when all of a sudden it's jolting? It can be a moment of great inspiration. It can be a moment of great insight. It can also be a moment of great desperation. But we have those wake-up, aha, jolting moments, and he had that. But he also had something in his life at this point that he hadn't had really prior to that. Because when he was in London, he was exposed to literature. He was exposed to the writings of Henry David Thoreau. He was exposed to the Bible. He began to study the teachings, the Sermon on the Mount in particular. He began to dig into the Bhagavad Gita as he never had before, and he began to see all the similarities. He began to meditate. He said that he had a commitment to meditate 2 hours every day, an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. Someone once asked him, they said, "You are so busy, you accomplish so much. How do you have that much time to meditate?" He said, "I accomplish so much because I take that much time to meditate." And there's a lot of truth in that. So he had begun to practice self-observation. And he said that that night he was so angry. He later wrote about the anger. He said, anger is like electricity. It's just as useful and can be just as powerful, but only if we use it intelligently. If we abuse it, it can be just as deadly and destructive. He had a choice. He was very angry. He had an aha moment. Would he run or would he make it matter? Reverend Wendy Craig Purcell wrote, when we practice self-observation, we realize that we have choices, and that choices are what make us powerful. Unless we are aware, we can't change. It seems so obvious and so simple, and yet we are extremely unskilled and unpracticed at paying attention to our own thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. Amen? We're unskilled in many ways in this. We tend to operate on automatic pilot, as if we have no control. But the reality is that unless we know what we're doing, we have little chance of changing it. And often the simple act of becoming aware causes us to do something differently. That night he became aware. He became aware that his first knee-jerk action, what he wanted to do more than anything, was to go back to India. And so he realized and began to ask that question, what do I want to make of myself? You know, awareness is a powerful thing. I remember in seminary, one of the things we had to do, we give talks and they recorded them and we watched them to get feedback about ourselves. To this day, I don't like hearing or watching myself. But when I first started standing up to speak, I would do this. And I'm like, I don't do that normally. Why am I doing this? That is really annoying. And our classmates would give us feedback and they would say things like, Darlene, I couldn't understand I just kept watching you do that. And I would watch it online and I'm like, well, I just need to run. I just need to leave, because how in the world do you stop some unconscious tick or twit? So I hope I'm not still doing it. But what the teacher said was, bring awareness to it. And I remember thinking, yeah, I'm painfully aware. Have you ever reached that point of being painfully aware of a behavior, painfully aware of an action, painfully aware of maybe a jealous feeling or a feeling of resentment or whatever? You're painfully aware. But the point is, if we bring awareness to it with the willingness to realize, I have this thing going on, I have this experience, I have this feeling, but I'm more than this feeling. The power of self-awareness begins to heal us. And Gandhi knew that. He knew that he needed to make a choice, and so he did. He later went on to write, as human beings, our greatness lies not so much in being able to remake the world. That is the myth of the atomic age. Our greatness is in being able to remake ourselves. To being able to remake ourselves, that what will we make of ourselves? And to bring the practice of self-observation. Because self-observation is at the heart of self-realization, the higher self, what we would call the Christ self, the Atman. Self-awareness helps us realize where we need to make course corrections. And that's what he did. Another thing he said is, live as if you were going to die tomorrow, but learn as if you were going to live forever. Isn't that beautiful? He also said, each night when I go to sleep, I die. And in the morning when I wake, I am reborn. Just like the Apostle Paul, who said, I die daily. He understood the power that through self-observation we could let go and release and set ourselves to change. So what will you make of yourself? And will you become more deeply committed to a practice of self-observation? You see, the young boy Gandhi, even the young man Gandhi, was not the same Gandhi that freed the nation. But as Gandhi grew, he grew up as inner child. He grew up his fears. He walked with his doubts to become the man that he was. That led him to the second. I believe the second question is, what will matter most? What matters most to me? What will matter most? Many people, if you look at Gandhi's life and you say, well, what mattered most to Gandhi? The first instinctual response may be, well, nonviolence. But I really thought about that this week, and I don't think that what mattered most to him was nonviolence. Because nonviolence in and of itself, I don't think is enough. I believe that for him, nonviolence was the way to live out what did matter most. Because what mattered most to him was equality. He said, if God is holy, all are holy. We are all cut from the same God cloth. That what mattered most to him was equality. He believed when that night when he was thrown off the train, he said, I will make it my life's mission to work to heal the illusion of prejudice. He also said that my life's mission will be to heal the belief that one religion is better than the other. Now that's a powerful statement, especially in the time that he was living. And so he made it his life's mission. His life's mission was about what I call the sacredness of all life. That the sacredness of all life was so near and dear and precious to him that the only way to live that out is a commitment to nonviolence. Amen? Because he realized that how can I have violent thoughts and violent actions if I truly do believe in the sacredness and the dignity of all life? And so it became his life's work. He never said that he had totally mastered it, but he was doing all that he could to continually master himself so that he could live out his belief in equality. Some of the things he said were, the simplest acts of kindness are by far more important than 1,000 heads bowing in prayer. Isn't that true? He was such a powerful force. Another thing he said is the golden way is to be friends with the world and to regard the whole human family as one. In 1930, Gandhi was on the front of Time magazine as the person of the year. In 1930, he had been imprisoned again. He had been fasting, refusing to eat again, because he also believed, last week I talked about someone who said they believed the highest calling was thou shalt not stand idly by. You see, he truly, what he believed in, it was what he called soul force. He practiced nonviolence because he believed in a power called soul force or love force, and what soul force literally means is the upliftment of all. He really believed in uplifting all people. He truly did live that out, and that was what he practiced. And so he believed that if there was a violent act taking place to any group of people, that he needed to respond to that. So what was happening that time in history was the British Empire decided that they were going to put a tax on salt. All of the people in the nation were using salt, as were people around the world. And so they decided that they made a rule that it would be illegal for anyone to get salt out of the ocean. The only way you could get salt was to buy it directly from them. And of course, they charged a high tax for it. And Gandhi said, that is violence in and of itself because you're oppressing people. So what he did was typically what Gandhi would do. He did something. He set out to walk to the ocean, which was a little over 200 miles, for the purpose of breaking that rule. He didn't believe it was just. He was going to go get some water and make his own salt, knowing that he would be arrested, but that's how he believed in bringing attention to what was unjust. And so when he started that 200-plus mile walk, 12 people joined him. By the time he got to the ocean, there were thousands of people. He did that. He went and he got the water and he made salt, which he broke the law. He was arrested, but tens of thousands of people were arrested. It reached a point of being absolutely absurd, to the point where the British Empire said, I don't know what to do with him. I think we're going to have to give him the country. We just can't deal with him. And they did. And so he literally made the cover of Time magazine that was one of the many things that he did. It's called the Salt March. And that really influenced Dr. Martin Luther King. What a lot of people don't know is that Dr. Martin Luther King was heavily influenced by Gandhi. As a matter of fact, one Palm Sunday, his entire Palm Sunday talk was about Gandhi. And this is one of the things he said. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, as I delved deeper into the philosophy of Gandhi, my skepticism concerning the power of love gradually diminished. And I came to see for the first time its potency in the area of social reform. It was this Gandhian emphasis on love and nonviolence that I discovered the method for social reform that I had been seeking. He found a model. He found someone that proved to him, and he taught his people the same thing, how to do that. So what mattered most to Gandhi was soul force. The Indian word for it is sarvodaya, S-A-R-V-O-D-A-Y-O, sarvodaya, but it means soul force or the upliftment of others. His whole life was about uplifting others, to the point where they would tell stories about him. One day he was trying to get on a train, and his foot got caught, his shoe got caught, and he couldn't get on. Couldn't get on quick enough, so he finally just jumped on, and his shoe fell off. And very quickly he took the other one off and threw it. And they said, why did you do that? And he said, well, whoever finds my shoes, I want them to have a whole pair. He just naturally cared. He was naturally thinking about other people. So soul force, whether it was throwing somebody 2 shoes or literally a march that would cause him to be in prison. He also helped bring down and change the rules, because in that culture, the Hebrew scriptures and the Hindu both had untouchables, the unclean. You know that if they were unclean, you couldn't touch them or you'd be unclean. Well, there was a whole caste of people in India called untouchables, and they were starving and living in destitution. And what did he do? He went and started cleaning their toilets. One of the most humble, lowly things you can do, but again, to bring attention to the fact that these people are human beings just like everybody else. We've got to help them work to create better conditions. And because of that, the laws were changed. And so this soul force was what his life was about. The other thing his life was about was simplicity. He became very simple. When he was younger in life, he had accumulated things. He wore nice clothes. But as time went on, he went back to a more simplistic culture. And he would define simplicity as whatever it is that allows you to feel content and to be free and to be simple. He was going to meet the King of England. And this was at the time when he was wearing that handmade loincloth. It was just a loincloth. And he was going to meet the King of England, and someone said, are you going to have a discussion with the king with just your loincloth? And he said, yes, I'm going to have a discussion with the king in just my loincloth, because the king is wearing enough clothes for the both of us. He lived out truly what he believed. So the second question, what will matter most? What matters most to you? And to be connected to that soul force. He said there's a force in the universe which, if we permit it, it will flow through us to produce miraculous results. Soul force and simplicity. One of his popular sayings was, I choose to live simply so that others may simply live. Beautiful. Richard, would you give me the song? The third point that I believe he asked is, am I doing my very best? Would you say that with me? Am I doing my very best? Am I doing my very best? And a practice here is to step up, to know when it's time for us to step up. Gandhi said there are 2 days in the year we cannot do anything, yesterday and tomorrow. He said, I am not a visionary. I claim to be a practical idealist. Isn't that beautiful? A practical idealist. I have not the shadow of a doubt that any man or woman can achieve what I have if he or she would make the same effort and cultivate the same hope and faith. You'll find that many of the mystics, remember Jesus said, the things that I do, you can do. And he didn't even stop there, and he said, and even greater, as if that wasn't enough. Well, Gandhi's saying the same thing. So 2 final examples of how he practiced and held himself accountable. Am I doing my best? You may remember the story. A mother had a little son, and the little boy would not eat. But this little boy loved Baba Gandhi. And so she thought, well, if I can just take my son to Baba Gandhi and he will tell my son to eat, all the little boy wanted to eat was sweets. It's called Indian milk candy. That's all the little kid wanted to eat. So she said, well, let me take him to Baba Gandhi, and if he'll talk to him, my son will listen. So the mother made the trip to go talk to Gandhi, and you have to think about this for a moment. Here's a man that's on the cover of Time magazine. He is changing the course of history. He is freeing an entire nation. He's doing it in the spirit of nonviolence. And a woman wants to go talk to him to say, would you tell my son not to eat so much candy? And he made time for this. So the woman talks to him, explains it, and Gandhi says, come back in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks later, woman comes back and says, remember, Baba Gandhi, would you talk to my son? All he wants is sweets. So Gandhi sat down and he said, son, you must eat the food your mother prepares. You need to be strong. You cannot eat too many sweets, very, very little sweets. And the little boy said, yes, Baba. And the lady said, Gandhi, I'm confused. Why couldn't you do that 2 weeks ago? And he smiled and said, 2 weeks ago, I was eating too much sugar. Now, I love that. Because how many of us would have just talked to the kid and sent them on their way? But he lived it. He didn't have bumper sticker religion. He lived it. If he wasn't living it, he was not going to ask someone else. He called himself higher. He took 2 weeks to change a habit to talk to a child. That's powerful. That's incredibly powerful. The second and final story. Gandhi was born in 1889, and so flash forward about 100 years in the 1980s. This little boy called Nkosi Johnson is born in South Africa. Now remember, Gandhi had been in South Africa for over 20 years. He was a hero in South Africa as well as India. The people loved him. This little Nkosi had grown up hearing about Baba Gandhi and saw him as a hero and aspired to be like him. But this little boy, if you remember, the 1980s in South Africa was at the height of the HIV and the AIDS epidemic. And it was at a time when people were just dying. Nkosi was born to parents who were both HIV positive. His father died before he was born, and his mother died the first week he was going to school. He was born HIV positive, and very soon he contracted AIDS as well. He was outcast as a child because of that. But this little Nkosi, people described him like a bright ball of light, and Gandhi was his hero. And if Gandhi could be the face of a nation, he believed maybe his calling was to be the face of AIDS. And this little boy began to go around the communities and began to go around the town, and he'd say, you know, we're all people. Why don't we do what we can with what we have right where we are? Why don't we do the best we can wherever we are with what we've got? He's begun to grow in popularity to such an extent that he was awarded a prize where he received several, I think $10,000. He took all of that money and he created what's called Nkosi's Refuge in Johannesburg, South Africa. This little dying boy created a refuge for people to come, anyone to come who was dying of AIDS. He wound up being elevated, Nkosi did, before what he lived throughout his life, which was a short life. Nkosi only lived to be 12 or 13 years old. But he took that message and he was inspired by Gandhi. And you know, I have to think that Gandhi never knew that a Martin Luther King Jr. would come along. He never knew that a Desmond Tutu would come along. He never knew that a little Nkosi Johnson would come along 100 years later. But Gandhi always believed in doing his best. My favorite Gandhi quote is this one. The difference between what we do and what we are capable of doing would solve most of the world's problems. Amen. Would you read that with me? The difference between what we do and what we are capable of doing would solve most of the world's problems. What will I make of myself? The practice is self-observation. What matters most? What will matter most? Gandhi said, take care of the moment. Soul force and simplicity are the practice. And then am I doing the best I can? The practice is to know where and when we need to step up a bit. I'm going to invite the band to come up, and I want to lead you into a song that was written by a couple. They were inspired by Nkosi and Gandhi and Mother Teresa. And they wrote this song using Nkosi's words that say this: do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Join me. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. To do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. We pause for a moment to give thanks. To give thanks for the man, legacy of Gandhi. For an individual who was willing to grow beyond his own fears and insecurity. For an individual who was willing to take the aha moments, the anger, and to channel it into a soul force for good. An individual who held himself really accountable to live out his best, his highest self. An individual who studied scriptures and literature and different religions with an open mind and an open heart, to be able to see through the differences and to see to the point of the essence that all life is sacred. All life is sacred. And he made it his mission to be an advocate for just that. To be a voice for the voiceless. To bring attention in the most peaceful way possible to places of injustice. He had the audacity to believe that what he was doing mattered. So we open and just allow these questions, without the mind trying to respond to them right now, just allow these questions to land in you so that they can begin to work from the inside out. What are you making of yourself? What am I making of myself? What will matter most? It's all said and done. And at the end of every day, at the end of every encounter, what will really matter most? And am I truly doing the best I can? Am I doing the best I can? Are Are there places in my life that I can lovingly see where I'm undermining my own capacity to show up as I know I can? So we bring that spirit of love. We bring that spirit of sacred dignity. We realize that within our soul there is a power, there is a force that is known as love. It's always seeking to bring us beyond any self-imposed limitations. It's calling us back to the truth of our being. So may we commit to self-observation. May we commit to being in touch with this soul force, what matters most within us. May we give consideration to simplicity. Where in my life am I being called to live more simply? And to step up. How am I being called to step up? We create space for these questions. We create space in our thoughts. We create space in this shared moment. In this space, we consider those that we're holding in prayer. I invite you to speak their name into this sacred space. To speak your own name. Again to say thank you, Gandhi. Thank you for a life well lived. Thank you for your jewels of wisdom. Thank you for your heart and your spirit that continue to touch and inspire. And we choose to be open this week to any gift that is making its way into our heart, into our mind, our life. So it is. So I invite you to bring your awareness back into this room. To join your voices together. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Would you stand with me? Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. All right, this time, close your eyes and see if you can commit it to memory. Here we go. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. You got it. Sing it out. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. You can open your eyes. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have. to the 12-year-old little peacemaker Nkosi, and to the 78-year-old Gandhi. Thank you. You may be seated.
And to the however many year old Reverend Darlene. Thank you. I know. I was just trying to keep it a secret. I'd like to invite our ushers to come forward. This is a time when we make our offering during this service. And so I invite you to breathe in that song again. Do all you can with what you have and the time you have and the place you are. Do all you can. So whatever it is that you have to do, that's yours to do in your time, in your place, breathe that into your heart right now. And we know that we imbue all that we give with this spirit. And so let's say this affirmation together. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. I am now in perfect balance and flow with the universal tides of giving and receiving. Thank you, God, and so it is.
With our eyes wide shut in the still of the night, we sit and hold a vision. When the fears burn wild, we don't run and hide. See the world with one vision. We see one love, one heart, one drum beating to the song that is singing in us. We dance in white light under the starlight. We are sacred seeds of Om, and we say Aho, Amen, Om Shanti Om, and we say Aho, Amen, Om Shanti Om. We are the movers and the shakers and the peacemakers. We are the movers and the shakers and the peacemakers. With our eyes we see each other and your perfectly clear reflection. There are no other, only one mother, and she's taking us in one direction. Love is our weapon, music is our religion, peace is our power, peace is our mission. We don't separate or dominate, we appreciate and we celebrate. We say Aho, Amen, Om Shanti Om, and we say Aho, Amen, Om Shanti Om. We are the movers and the shakers and the peacemakers. We are the movers and the shakers and the peacemakers. And we can go higher, higher, higher still. And we could get louder, 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 yes we will. And we could go higher, higher, higher still. And we could get louder and louder and louder, yes we will. We feel the power in the present, and it's in all its in essence in its own space. We don't get lost in thought or drown in drama. We're the guardians of this place. We see with one love, one heart, one drum beating to the sound that is singing us home. We dance in white light to the moonlight. We are sacred seeds of home, and we say Aho, Amen, Om Shanti Om, and we say Aho, and the shakers and the peacemakers. We are the movers and the shakers and the peacemakers, and we can get higher, higher, higher still, and we can get louder and louder and louder. Yes, we will, and we can get higher and higher and higher still, and we can get louder and louder and louder. Yes, we will. We are the movers and the shakers and the peacemakers. We are the lovers and the leaders. We are the ones you waiting for. We're the movers and the shakers and the peacemakers. And we are the lovers and the leaders. We are the ones you're waiting for. And we say, Aho, Amen, Om Shanti Om. We say, Aho, Amen, Om Shanti Om. And we say, Aho, Amen, Om Shanti Om. And we say, Aho, Amen, Om Shanti Om.
It's always good to move and shake with you. Thank you, Kat, and thank you to this amazing band, and thank you, Ben, for being with us this morning. And I'd like to invite our folks to come forward. We've got our prayer chaplain, Carol Lane, who's holding our prayer box, which sits in the back of the chapel, and you are welcome to put your prayer request in there. They'll be held this week in confidence by our prayer chaplain team and sent off to Silent Unity. And it's a reminder that we give in many ways. We give through our prayers, we give through our financial gifts, we give through our time and our talent. And so we take all of these gifts and we say thank you. And I'm going to offer this to
Okay, you're going to hold it? Oh, Father, Mother God, thank you for the blessing of being here. Thank you for Kat's prayer and song. Thank you for Darlene's message. Thank you that we have somehow or another on our path of life been guided to be right here at this time, and that we've been challenged to be all that we can be, all that you expect us to be, all that we expect ourselves to be. Thank you. Thank you. We are the givers, the movers, the shakers. We are Unity people, and we are grateful.
Amen. Amen. Ahom. Amen.
Ah,
Om Shanti Om.
That's right.
If you weren't here last week, or if you were and you've not yet picked up one of these, we have a bunch of different colors fabric squares, and I'm inviting you sometime between now and the last Sunday in this month. Take this, one or two. We've got baskets of them in the back. There's one in the corner back here. But we're every individual to somehow depict on one of these squares or two or three of these squares what it means to you, to what community, what connection means to you. What is our collective vibe here? And then we're going to have them put together in a quilt, and it'll be part of our Easter experience. So I invite you to pick one of these up, and we'll get some. We have plenty, but we'll get some more, as many as we need. So for those of you that somebody's already turned one in with these beautiful stitches on it, so let's get on it. I want to invite you to stand as we bring this time in service to close. Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin in our hearts.